I thought I was the oldest daughter, but this is probably the oldest friend. Lil, you can tell.
You know, everybody is speaking about this wonderful upside of Becky. I knew her before that. Really, people, let's get real here. When I knew Becky, I was first roommates with Margaret Moos and then later Becky Moos. And it was during the anti-war movement, Pot Central. And we were together in this house, and Becky and I decided if we didn't get out of this house, we were in serious trouble. And so we moved into a fourplex where it was all elderly people, and we had the only other room, otherwise we'd never get through school. And so we were captured in this fourplex, but Becky went into law, I went into social work, and she would sit up at the dining room table with a spoon of brown sugar, and she'd take a layer off, and then she'd say, "Don't you think this is interesting?" And I would say, "No." The only case that was interesting was the milk carton with the mouse in it. I liked that one. But other than that, they really, she would just loved law immediately. But for a break, she would read cookbooks. So when you talk about, here's somebody reading these books, and then she would make something and she'd say, "I don't want to get fat, but I left this for you in the refrigerator." It was simply not helpful to me. But I totally ate it. And then as life went on, we did a number of other things together. We spent a summer in Cripple Creek, Colorado, which is now a gambling town, but at that time, it was a town, an old gold mining town, and there were still old gold miners there. And we would have, what's the drink with the Kahlua cream and vodka or something? White Russian. And we were getting so fat, and we couldn't figure it out. Oh my God, it's the White Russians. And we would 10 bar and waitress in this ne'er-do-well place, and we would sit by the ice cream thing and just talk about which person we didn't care for who we had waited on and how we were going to get even. Our favorite thing was to take their food out from under the heating light and then just serve it a tiny bit later. So for all of you that think Becky was this one person, no, in fact, she was this other one too.
I think I'll wrap it up so you all can just talk again, but.
Oh, no.
What? Oh.
Did people want to say something?
Say something?
Someone.
I think we're.
Oh, Natalie. I'm sorry, I didn't know that.
Okay. It's okay, I just raised my hand.
We've got a granddaughter.
Hi, I'm Natalie. I am Coco's oldest, or lovingly known as the fifth daughter amongst our circle. I went to St. Olaf College, and I had the pleasure of living in the Princeton house for kind of like 4 years, basically. I crashed the coop and lived in my mom's bedroom, and I got to spend some really quality time with my grandparents during that time. And so in the car, Grandpa was like, "All right, Natalie, I want you to think of a couple of stories that maybe you could share, maybe 1 minute up on the mic." And so I quickly tried to pull up some thoughts that have been floating around in my brain the last couple of weeks since her passing, of fun memories. So I figured I'd just share a couple of those. I got to eat so many good Becky meals as a college student who was not thriving on the college meal plan. During the summertime, I was like, oh, this is what real good food tastes like. And we also had the pleasure of splitting a bottle of wine amongst the three of us at dinners most nights in the summer. So a lot of silly chats and just good times together. But one of my memories that I have with my grandma was we started watching How to Get Away with Murder together. And what I thought was so funny about it is that she would kick back, and I don't know if you guys know, but she always puts her hands above her head when she's digesting her food after eating, and she'd always be like, that's not how it works. With all of the law stuff with the lawyers. And I think about it now, and I think it's so funny, and after she passed, I didn't really realize the extent of how prestigious she was in the field, and so now I look back and I'm like, oh, she really was like, this is not how it works at all. So we watched that show. I couldn't tell you what happened, but I just really loved sitting there and just watching it with my grandma, and it was like a little thing that we did almost every night. Another time, throwback to around the pandemic, I was living with Greta and Greg, so I'm kind of like their little sister in a way. But at one point we had to go our separate ways, and I wasn't quite ready to go back to Washington yet because it was so far from my friends, and as a freshman I was kind of stamping my foot. But they lovingly took me into the cabin to live with them for the remainder of my semester, even though everything with COVID was terrifying. And Grandma is just, she thinks of everything, makes sure that you're always comfortable, always loved, and she set up a whole apartment for me in the basement of the cabin. I had my own microwave, I had ways to cook food, I had groceries, I didn't come up except for 5 feet apart dinners, and that was my 2 weeks there until I was allowed to come upstairs. But I was still allowed to I forgot my train of thought there, but whatever. I still got to eat all of her really good food, so it always comes back to being around the table with the two of them. But she showed me so much love during those times, and I feel like it was always centered around meals and such. And then the last little funny story that I always think of her was later in my college years, I kind of like to tag along a little bit to the farmer's market. As you know, she really loved to go on Saturday mornings, and I really thought that one of the vendors was really cute, and it was the milkman. And he sold chocolate milk, and he looked like my middle school celebrity crush. I don't know if anyone knows what Nicholas Holt looks like. It's fine if you don't. But she was my wingman and walked up to the vendor and was like, oh, I want to get some chocolate milk for my grandkids, and this is my other grandkid, I'd love for you to meet her. And I was so awkwardly like, hi. But she just loved spending time with her grandkids in all different ways, and I think that each of the grandkids can attest to that in their own individual memories, but I feel like I really stockpiled a ton in the years that I got to spend there, so I feel pretty lucky that I got that time. So,
So, I didn't get to live in Minnesota, but I always got to look forward to coming to Minnesota, where I was sort of a demon in my parents. I'd wake up at about 5 a.m. every day for like my entire childhood. But when I'd come to Minnesota, Grandma Becky would always be up before me, and I'd wake up coming to the kitchen and she'd say, you want to go to the farmer's market? And I always said yes. She never wingmaned me with the milkman. She got me assorted beef jerkies, and I went and got tomatoes with her, and it was a hell of a time. And I remember every time I'd look forward to Minnesota, because I'd get to wake up and I wouldn't be the first person up. But yeah, Grandma taught me to cook with all of that farmer's market stuff, and actually the day she passed, I looked back in my camera roll and I found the first time she ever showed me how to cook a pie. I've still got the photo. It's one of the first 10 photos in my whole camera roll. But yeah, you're gonna miss her.
Hey everybody, I'm George, and I'm the one who did the cardinal sin of making Becky a grandmother. and I always think she was always kind of in this mood of being like, I'm actually not really gonna act like a grandmother. Like around George, like I'm gonna be active, I'll be working out. And there's one story that's very emblazoned in my brain. I was kind of a teen, we were at the beach, and I made the horrible mistake of saying, Grandma, why are you wearing a bikini? Like, I didn't know grandmas wore bikinis. I'll never forget. Grandma Becky looked me right in the eyes and said, George, I will wear a bikini until I die. I just think back about her as a person, and like, that's like that moment where I saw that intensity, where she kind of was always able to flip, and I see it. I see her as the lawyer. And I guess just kind of lastly, I'll share just the last piece of wisdom that she gave to me. We were having a phone call, kind of talking about careers and balancing that with life. And what Becky said to me is, if you are someone for whom work feels like play, make sure that the real play never passes you by. And I think about that a lot because I think she, more than anybody else, lived that out and really was able to achieve that. And yeah, and I loved her, and she was a great grandmother, and I'm glad I got to be her first grandkid, and definitely not the last of the whole litter. But yeah.
I think I'll
Tell
keep
your
this.
names.
I'll keep this brief. I'm Henry. I'm Kendra's youngest. And I think there's quite a consensus that Grandma was really, really good with kids. And looking back on it, I more and more come to understand that it's because she was a kid. and I think that part of the reason why she was so good with kids, apart from actually being a kid herself, was the way that she was able to form perspective and interact with children and be on the same wavelength as them through curiosity about the world and about nature. And she would ask questions and like bring us shelling, and not only pick up a shell and say, hey, this is cool, but say, do you know what that is? That's a Genonia. Do you know how it died? No, Grandma. There are these periwinkles that will eat the shell out and then eat it from inside. Isn't that really cool, Henry? And I don't know, I think that her curiosity is something that to a young person in such a malleable like mind state really leaves an impression. And going forward, I think that when I think about Grandma Becky, I really think that she has shaped my perspective about the world as one of curiosity. And I think that's something really valuable, and that's something that I really love about her, and that I'm never gonna forget.
Be quick.
Here he comes.
I'll be quick.
His favorite.
Actually, I'm the fourth wild boy. I'm Greg, Greta's husband, son-in-law to Becky. And so, before I black out right now, I'm gonna give you my 3 quick topics. So it's Becky Fun, Becky Badass, and Becky Mom. So Becky Fun, the most fun I've seen Becky have was at Greta and I's wedding. She was very happy when we walked down the aisle, but it was actually the party bus that she was the only parent that snuck onto the bus maybe not snuck on, but ended up on, taking the wedding party from the ceremony to the reception, which was in their backyard, and it was pure joy. I looked at her face, and she was by far having the most fun out of anybody on that bus. And I think it was sort of this unlock of, she knew how to have fun, but she saw a whole nother level of fun on that bus with sisters, brothers, son-in-laws, just having a good time. What was number 2? Becky Badass. This is the story that I think Becky wants me to make sure that I share with everybody. So this Icon Award that's been spoken about happened in 2019 when Greta and I had just moved up here. We were at a party very similar to this where we're honoring Becky. There's a table similar to all these tables filled with people. Greta, Erica, John, myself, Kate and Val, Mary was there, Sarah was there. There was one seat open at that table, which was Becky's. She didn't even show up to her own ceremony, which I thought was so badass. She was actually 2 blocks down the road working on a case and just doing what Becky does. All right, and this last one I have not thought out as well, but I'm gonna try. But Becky mom, so I love my wife, and there are times when it's like and Becky and I feel like we have this partnership where, you know, it's a challenging time and we look at each other, or a challenging time for Greta, and we look at each other and be like, she'd look at me and be like, hey, do you need some help on this one? And I'd generally be like, yeah. Thanks, Becky. I was there for some of those conversations where I didn't know what the right thing to say was, but Becky would say, perfect thing. And it was really hard. Sorry. Yeah, she would just say the perfect thing that I would never have come up with. And I will miss that so much. So, yeah.
I'm the shorter brother-in-law, son-in-law. The only thing I'll say is 2 things. I'm late to the party of the clan, about 10 years in. My first meeting was at a dude ranch riding 15 miles a day on a horse. And I met all of them all at once. And in my first meeting, I kind of had this mentality like, bring it, I got this. But then I realized, this is a lot. And I was very sore and popping Advil like Tic Tacs. And I remember Becky pulled me aside and she goes, hey, you got this. And I looked at her and I go, really? She goes, well, don't mess it up. And I haven't, so I'm really happy about that. And Greg and Greta got married in the backyard of Carl and Becky's house. And it happened to be, at this age, you don't care about birthdays. But everybody knows what Becky knows is she knows what's special to everybody. She makes them on the side. And it was like the day before this huge wedding where her daughter's getting married in the backyard. And she gets me a bundt cake for my birthday and a bottle of Crown on the counter and says happy birthday. And every time I come to the house, there's always a note. And we'd get in late. We live in the Seattle area, Coco and I, and we'd get in late. And there would be a note on the counter. They'd be in bed, and there'd be the half gallon of Crown and the Diet Coke, and she'd say, Todd, this is for you. Have one before you go to bed. And Coco would always go, but what about me? And even being late to the party, she made me feel so special. And she is a badass in so many categories you can't even he can't even fathom. And I'm just so happy to be a part of her life for a short time.
I'm looking around. I think, yeah. Oh, Dad's gonna come up. This is a new development.
Does it go to him? Will the mic go to him?
Dad, let me see if the mic reaches over there.
It will. You've got cord.
Wheel into the middle.
Yeah. You can stand.
No, just let him sit in the room.
All right, you gotta hold it pretty close.
I'm holding it close. Can you hear me? I want to thank everybody who's come here. The Bass Lake people, the McAllister faculty, staff, and all of Kendra's good friends from high school, the St. Pauli girls, all of Greta's good friends from high school. Woo! And there are my 3 siblings are here, and a couple of the nieces and nephews are here. And one, what's Peter Coke would you be?
Great nephew.
My one great nephew is here. And then these who got left out. Oh,
Neighbors,
all the girls used to work for us.
Woo!
So, Jessica, Joyce.
Put it close.
But thank you all for coming. And it really has been a delight for me to realize how few people, except the lawyers, I forgot. The lawyers knew that she was good. But quite frankly, very few people at McAllister or at the lake knew that she was a hotshot lawyer. Kind of stunned when they heard that she had all these accomplishments. And that was not Becky's style. She didn't brag about or talk about what she did. She just came home and enjoyed her family. And a lot of us didn't know what she was doing in the law. I remember when I first met her, I was at a defense lawyers meeting up in Duluth. And I was sitting at a table having a cocktail. There was this beautiful woman across the table from me, and it was Becky. She had just joined the Bassford firm, and she said, she thought I was going to try to hustle her. So I put my verbal move on her, something like, hey, do you want to get a drink with me? And she said, are you still married? And I said, well, frankly, yes, but the marriage is on the rocks. She said, get a hold of me when you get your papers. And literally, about 2 years later, I was walking the street downtown Minneapolis during the day, and she was walking down the street, and we stopped and said hi. We talked to each other a little bit too long to each other. You know what that's like when you run into somebody you kind of like, and I didn't tell her right then, but I did. I called her up following that, and I said, I have my papers now. We'd like to go out. So we had our first date was lunch at the Mary Tyler Moore restaurant on the second floor in the IDS building.
Oh.
And the lunch went on and on and on. And then we went for a long walk after that. And the rest is history. We found each other, we found true love. And as these girls testified, my daughters, the first 2 daughters, they never called her a stepmom. They knew she was, but their mom was Hertz and Becky was Avis.
Oh.
They were comfortable with that. I was too. And then it was great having Greta and Erica come along. So anyway, I'm done.
All right, as you were. thank you to everyone for coming here. I think if anyone else wants to speak, you can come turn the mic back on, but I'm done now. Is it on? Anyway, as you were.